You're listening to iCannabisRadio.com.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to American Weed Realm Radio. I'm Josh Stanley. I'm your host tonight, and absent my co-host, my younger brother, Jesse. It's been quite a week, I got to tell you, for the Realm of Caring and for the Stanley brothers. First off, I want to thank everybody for your thoughts, your prayers, your emails, your willingness to come out and volunteer, grab a rental truck, and work on the evacuation plans. For those of you that don't know, we've been dealing this week with quite a bad wildfire. There's a few of them going on in Colorado right now. I won't get exactly into the territory this wildfire is. That's where our farm is. But if you drew a straight line 7 miles from this wildfire, the way the wind was blowing, it was going to take out our ranch within hours. So today, luckily, the wind has shifted some and taken a little bit of the pressure off of us and our ranch. But again, I want to thank all the volunteers. You guys have been absolutely overwhelming to us in all of the emails. Thank you so much. And we haven't been able to make the Realm of Caring oil, and we've got Jessie actually is up visiting a cancer patient in the hospital undergoing chemo to make sure that she didn't run out of oil. So I thank him for that, but we'll miss him tonight. We have a very lively show tonight, so I'm not going to get into my usual Stanley rant. We're going to really get right into the show. But as always, I want to encourage everybody and the first-time listeners, go to realmofcaring.com. See what this nonprofit does. See how you can get involved. Everybody can be involved. And I know we've got some listeners out there tonight from Sweden. We've got some listeners out there tonight from Scotland. And thank you for the messages you guys posted in. Even you can get involved. You had mentioned how important it was to bring these things to your country. And you know what? Like I say, it takes one lighthouse to bring in 1,000 ships. So thank you all. Go to realmofcaring.com. Become involved. It's a nonprofit organization aimed at getting concentrated medical cannabis oil, or Realm oil, into the hands of needy patients, cancer patients, MS patients, Parkinson's patients, severe arthritis, epileptic syndrome, certainly Dravet syndrome. And we're going to be hearing tonight a little bit from Page Figi, who is Charlotte's mother, who is actually in the studio, and she'll be coming up in the second half of our hour. So we're going to get right into this here. I've got some very, very special guests here tonight. We've got Elisa Kappelmann.
Hi, Josh.
Hello. Thank you so much for coming on. We have the great litigator, Rob Corry.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Honor to have you. And we have Stickman tonight.
The
Just
stick is in his house.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let me give you a little bit of background on these guys. They've really been at the forefront of the medical marijuana scene in Colorado in recent weeks. And for Elisa, it's been years. And sweetheart, I can't even begin to tell you how sorry. I don't even know how somebody could go through 2 years of having a felony and prosecution like this over your head. So I got to commend your courage just for the last 2 years of going through this. However, I am happy to announce on this show that last week, Elisa weathered the storm, and with the help of her amazing attorney, Rob Corry, rendered a not guilty verdict in her trial. And it's really something whenever you see somebody that has the courage, and I believe you got offered a plea.
I got offered several pleas.
Several pleas. And she said, stick it. You know what? Nothing I did was wrong. I wasn't in the wrong any step of the way, and you had the courage to go and fight that, and you had the right ammunition with you. And so, folks, what this means is you're starting to see that tide that I always talk about, that change, that snowball where somebody may be completely against medical marijuana, but they have a relative or a neighbor, somebody that's gathered benefit from it. And so the tide's changing on opinion. We saw that in the jury case. So let's get into this. Elisa, can you give us the background on this? Just give us the story.
Okay, I'm going to give it to you in a nutshell. It's been a little over 2 years ago that I was rated as a caregiver, and we weren't there at the time. And what they did was they counted, and they didn't take anything. Why do you think that was, Rob?
Well, I think they had reasonable doubt as to whether you were violating the law or not. I mean, the cops, they didn't know.
They took 7 grams. That's their evidence against me was 7 grams. There were 2 leaves in a little bunch.
It was pathetic. It was pathetic. 3 tiny little medicine jars of powder, basically, was a felony charge against this woman.
2 felonies.
It's what I use in like 2 days.
Yeah, right. You 7 grams? That's
what-
more like 7 minutes.
But we were caregivers. We had all the paperwork.
And can you tell what city and county was this in?
We were in Colorado Springs in El Paso County, which is a very conservative county.
The belly of the beast.
They're either marching or praying, folks, down there.
We have Pocus and the Fanny down there, and
Focus on the family, for those of you not know.
and they don't. Most of them don't take too kindly to this. So, basically, I was arrested for helping people who were sick who couldn't help themselves, and I did it legally. We were registered with the state, we were registered with the city, we were paying state and city sales tax in the name.
Were they cashing those checks?
Oh yeah,
Oh.
and it was in the name of Southern Colorado Medical Marijuana.
Did they refund those checks?
No.
Okay, didn't think so.
Didn't that make them co-conspirators?
That's what our point was.
So, they didn't arrest me. There were 7 of us that were raided, and I hired an attorney and had him take my paperwork to the DA's office, and we thought everything was fine because this was early May. In late August, in the Gazette-Telegraph down in Colorado Springs, they had an article in the paper that said, you sent out all these SWAT units, you rented a $7 million plane from Homeland Security and had them fly over Colorado Springs for 4 hours with heat-seeking.
Excuse me? I'm sorry.
You didn't know that part?
No, please elaborate on that a little bit.
It was a militarized thermal imaging view of this warehouse that they knew pot was in there. They had been there a week before on a reported burglary where the victim of the burglary said, somebody stole my marijuana plants. Cops came in, looked at his remaining marijuana plants. They knew about it. Then they got this multi-million-dollar militarized airplane to fly over there and do a thermal imaging of this thing to see what the heat signature was. I mean, this sounds like war, and
Well,
it is war.
They spent 4 hours flying over this little tiny building, apparently, because they spent 4 hours flying over Colorado Springs.
Even though they know that, okay, first off, folks, you have to understand the regulatory model in Colorado is very substantial. There's a lot of angst in this within the medical marijuana community. People think it's overregulated, but I'm here to tell you, whichever way you view it, it's highly regulated. So these places were told to the Department of Revenue Medical Marijuana Enforcement Division where they existed. So it wasn't like a real mind bender for them to have to go out and figure out where these shops were to fly over. But my question would be, how much of your money, my money, and tax money did they waste flying over with a thermal image airplane over the city for 4 hours? Stickman.
Roughly about $27,000 is the calculation that I've come up with, and I can explain that. $2,000 an hour times 4, that's $8,000. Another 4 hours round trip from the Canadian border to get the plane down here. And I believe it was staffed by 2 or 3 civil servants on the federal level. So you figure in the labor.
Who are paid salaries and, more importantly, are distracted from other priorities. I mean, going after this peaceful, innocent person, and I got to say, as a lawyer, the most stressful thing is to have an innocent client, somebody who comes to you, looks you in the eye, and I believe that she is innocent. I believe that. That puts a lot of stress on me. The guilty client, I can deal with that. That takes a little pressure off. I'm just there to, fight the case. The innocent client, if I screw up and make a misstep and she gets convicted, I mean, that follows me for my life, and it tears me to pieces. So you stressed me out, but the victory was all too sweet. All too sweet.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the victory. Let's talk about the trial itself, okay, honey? And again, I may say this over and over again, but what you went through is one of the most painful things I could ever imagine going through. And Rob just said it, knowing that you're innocent. Okay, and then having to go through this and having all eyes stared at you as if somehow you could be guilty or somehow you could have hurt somebody or broken serious laws here. let's tell me how the trial went.
And the only bright side to being charged with a felony is you find out who your true friends are, don't you?
This is for sure.
Didn't you?
I did.
Elaborate on that a little bit.
Oh, it's amazing that the people who you get charged with a crime like this fall out of your life. And people who you thought were tried and true friends are suddenly just, they don't return your calls, they don't talk to you. And then to find people who
fall into your life.
I found some wonderful, wonderful people, and it's kind of amazing. In a way, it's kind of a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, all this crap that I went through, it was a horrible, horrible ordeal, but I do know where I stand with people, that's for sure.
Yeah.
God does challenge those who he loves more, right?
He must love me an awful lot.
He must love you. Yeah.
He adores you.
How'd you feel in the onset of the trial?
It was kind of crazy. It was surreal. I mean, you don't ever expect to be standing up there on a witness stand and seeing a jury and having people yell questions at you. And I mean, that's TV. It just didn't even, it was just, and it's scary. Oh my gosh.
Did you feel like the trial was going good from the beginning, or were you unsure?
Actually, there were some things that really scared me. We had a policeman get on the witness stand and say over and over again, misstate the law. I don't know if he was intentionally lying or he truly believed that the law was something that it was not. But having a man with a gun who doesn't know the law that's enforcing it's almost scarier than having somebody who gets up there and lies about it. So, I mean, take your choice. But
and they get so much credibility, the police, which we want to give them to some extent, but it's almost like everything they say is the gospel truth, and it is so hard to refute that.
Well, and the jury was believing him.
Well, you want it to be, okay? We have law enforcement. Who else are you going to believe, right?
I know.
I mean, they're there to serve and protect. I mean, often they're there to
served.
perp and collect, but
I got served, all right.
Served, right? Yeah. But you know, that's a jury of our peers. They look at this, and who are you going to believe but the police officer?
And they did. They believed the police, and I was scared to death because he was saying it was illegal to grow before July 1st, 2010 in Colorado Springs, which you know is not true.
Absolutely not true, folks.
In fact, the opposite was true, and we proved that with the city witness, McCrae, who does this for a living. He testified point blank, if you weren't in business before July 1st, 2010, you could not be in business after July. So the cop got it exactly 180 degrees wrong. And the frustration from our side was refuting that because he said it with such conviction and persuasion.
And over and over.
Like he really believed it, and it started to sink in. And, I mean, we were very worried on our side that was going to resonate, and ultimately the jury did not believe him. I mean, they ultimately rejected that completely.
What caused them to reject it? How did you refute that?
I think two witnesses, Lee McCrae from the city of Colorado Springs, who this is his job, you know, full-time job to regulate dispensaries, and he came up and completely disavowed it, and he wasn't our witness. We didn't bring him in. And then attorney Cliff Black, who came in there and said the exact same thing, and he's quite knowledgeable and he knows what he's talking about, and he came in there and said, you know, same thing about July 1st. You had to be in business before then. And then we actually folded it into our closing argument and tried to respectfully say, you know, if this is the police officer's honest view, it's wrong, but it illuminates why he did what he did, and it's a partial explanation as to why he moved against this otherwise innocent person, this mistaken view of law. So we actually turned around his degree of conviction, and I think actually turned it in Elisa's favor.
I think he put a large degree of doubt in the jurors' minds also when I was on the stand, because they were like asking compound questions, like question on question on a question on a question, and then isn't that true? And he asked me. They said the police had tried to contact me 20 times between the time that they had raided me and the time that they arrested me, and they'd left 20 messages. And he said, isn't that true, that you made no attempt to talk to him? And I looked right at him and I said, that's a lie. And he looked at me like he wanted to kill me. And the jury could see that, and he just kept glaring at me. And I know they were going, why is he looking at her like that?
And I know that made an impression because the jurors said that. I mean, afterwards they said, we saw him glaring at her. Yeah. And in fact, even the prosecutor got it 180 degrees wrong. They said on closing, you saw Elisa up there on the stand glaring at the police officer, which was the exact opposite of the truth. And the jury saw that right in front of them, that actually the cop was glaring at Elisa, not the other way.
Hey, guys. Amazing. Guys,
I actually, I am going to call Mason back because he was calling in.
Okay.
And once we get him on the line, we're going to take a break. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. I want to get Mason on the line. I want to have him hold for a second. So do you want to, let's just go ahead and take a short break, but I want to wrap this up because we're not done yet. I want to get to the verdict. You had a special story after that. I think everybody needs to hear that. So we'll take a quick break, guys. We're going to be right back.
Hi, I'm Josh Stanley.
And I'm Jesse Stanley.
Two of the brothers here from National Geographic's American Weed, and we'd like to invite you to come into our dispensaries in Colorado Springs. Come in for the most pure organic strain selection in Colorado. It's all hand-grown by the Stanley brothers, especially for our patients. So come in and visit us at our two locations, East Platte and West Colorado. And remember,
always be kind to each other.
California's Attorney General has determined that the Repeal Cannabis Prohibition Act will save hundreds of millions of dollars from our overburdened justice system while creating hundreds of millions in new tax revenues from new sustainable jobs and industries that are friendly to our environment. But we can't do it without your help. We are seeking your donations to get on the ballot. Please go to repealcannabisprohibition.org to learn more about how you can help. It's time to end the war on cannabis and hemp in California. It's time to end the madness. Paid for by Sensible Californians Incorporated.
Are you a medical marijuana patient or interested in finding out how to become one? Contact Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. Conveniently located on Hamden and Tamarack in the Whole Foods parking lot behind Proof of the Pudding, Mile High Wellness offers a wide variety of edibles, hashes, and some of Colorado's top strains. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. 3525 South Tamarack, Suite 110, on the corner of Hamden and Tamarack. 720-382-8516. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern.
Hi, Josh Stanley here from National Geographic's American Weed. I'm here with my brothers, and we've just recently put together a foundation in Colorado to allow for cancer patients and other patients of debilitating conditions to be able to get a hold of cannabis-based oil that's just about free of charge. I've just about had it with seeing sick patients suffer needlessly just because they can't afford the proper medication. That's what the Realm of Caring is going to change. Visit therealmofcaring.com. The website will be complete and up on 4/20 of 2012. But until then, please contact any of us Stanley brothers directly through email. You can get us at gratefuljosh@hotmail.com. Now come on, Colorado. We need to take care of each other. Join the Realm. That's realmofcaring.com. Thank you so much.
Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it on grass. Runongrass.com. Let's face it, rules and regulations are complicated, especially in the field of medical marijuana. Let Medical Marijuana 101 help you get through the compliance process. We can also explain to you your employment requirements, your employees, and your business. But our work doesn't stop there. Our experience in cultivation ranges from the design of grow rooms to the diagnosis and resolution of grow problems. Visit us at www.medicalmarijuana101.com or call 303-388-7706. That's 303-388-7706.
Okay, welcome back to American Weed, the Realm Radio. We're here with our special guests, Elisa Kappelmann, Rob Corry, and Stickman, and we are going over Elisa's trial and her recent jury victory. We only have a few more minutes with them, and what I'm doing here, we're discussing at break. I'm going to have these guys back on for an hour because I think it's important. I think it's intriguing, the number of emails I've gotten about this case. Questions for Rob. I think we ought to have an hour to talk about this, to take your questions, take your calls, take your blog. So we're going to go ahead and do this in July. We'll get it on the schedule, and I'll let you guys know that. First off, thanks for coming again tonight. I know we don't have much time, but I want to get, what was your opinion upon the verdict? What was your feeling?
I just felt relieved, and you would think I would like scream and be happy, but it was tears of happiness. I just started crying. I grabbed him and hugged him, and I turned around, I grabbed Don and hugged him, and then I got up and I hugged the prosecutor.
And he hugged you back.
And he hugged me back.
All right.
When you hugged me, and I had the privilege of being the first one to hug you after you were not guilty, I mean, I just felt like all of the negative things coming out of your body. I mean, it was beautiful. It was awesome.
Well, and the whole courtroom started crying.
With one look. All she had to do was turn around, and every man in the courtroom was crying like a 3-year-old child.
I saw jurors with tears in their eyes.
Yeah.
That you know, when I got the verdict because Stickman texted me. I'm on I-70. I pulled my car over, got out of the car, and I did a little dance for you. I was so happy.
Did you film that? I want to see that.
I didn't have film crew with me.
I think there's some ladies who would like to see that footage.
Yeah. It was a Stanley chicken
Calling
dance.
me a lady, I want to see that footage.
Rob, give me your opinion on the verdict and how important it was. How important
it was so far-reaching to patients. I mean, this was a major battle. I mean, 6 days of court time. You know, the prosecutor pulled out all the stops. They did everything they could to convict this innocent person, and you know, and yet she prevailed. I mean, she like faced down the dragon, looked at him in the eye, and he blinked first. I mean, literally, and that takes an incredible amount of courage. It is not easy to do that. I don't hold it against anyone who takes a plea. I wouldn't have held it against you. But, I mean, to prevail after this, you know, that sends a message to caregivers and providers and centers everywhere, you know, that the justice system can work. I mean, it doesn't work every time, but if you fight it and stick to your principles, you can prevail. And you know what? I think you are stronger than had you not been charged, had this never happened. I mean, it was horrible for you to live through this, but now looking at you, I mean, I think you are a better person. You're a stronger person. You're a better caregiver. You're a better center for these people, for these patients who need this. You empathize with their problems. And you know, and the bottom line, they can't touch you in Colorado Springs now.
That's right.
You're basically bulletproof. You got the big fat NG, the not guilty verdict. You're immune essentially.
Rob, why don't you tell what you were just talking about on break about packing the 7 grams?
Well, what we're going to try to do is get this medicine back. We're going to liberate this medicine that was seized by police and captured and wrongfully imprisoned. And this medicine's been in prison for 2 years. And you know, I'm thinking, I mean, I'm up for any suggestions, but I'm thinking a public smoking on the front steps of the courthouse, that same courthouse that you went into over and over again, and you would be encircled by your many, many friends, and you know, a circle of protection and love and support. And you know, I would be there to support this, and I would proclaim that it was completely legal for you to consume evidence that was brought into the courthouse. If it's legal to bring it into the courthouse, it must be legal to have it right outside on the front steps of that courthouse.
I would think so.
And that'll be a symbolic moment for Elisa, a special time that, you know, is shared by the patient community down there in Colorado Springs. And it could be a beautiful moment, and it's sort of an icing on the cake to this, you know, 2-year nightmare that you emerged from.
Yeah. And you know, real quick, tell the story about are they 4 women? Is that it's 4 men or
4 person?
4 person. So the woman, the foreman on this trial, tell them what they said after the trial at the celebration.
Okay, so afterwards, one of my friends happened to run into one of the jurors out on the sidewalk and said we were having a victory drink. Would they want to come? And she ended up showing up and came up and hugged me and told me all the things that happened during deliberation. And she said that being able to give that verdict was the proudest moment of her life.
Wow. Guys, that's powerful.
It is. And DAs don't get that. I mean, when a district attorney charges you with a crime and you emerge from it, you are a lifetime activist. I mean, you will not be stopped. You know, you are a bulletproof, pissed off, fired up activist full of piss and vinegar, and God bless that. And jurors, this DA turned 12 people into activist, informed, knowledgeable people saying, you know, why did I just spend 5 days of my life looking at this woman who was innocent? I mean,
they kept telling them not to look at me because they didn't want them to be fooled by my appearance. Your
beautiful, sweet, innocent look, because you were innocent, and you are a sweet, innocent person.
They actually, to jump in real quick, they actually switched the tables from the normal setup to hide her from the jury.
Is that right? Yeah, I mean, you know
that's
what,
kind
folks?
of normal. That's normal. And it is so hard to be the defendant. I mean, you are sitting there, and you're on the defensive because you're a defendant. I mean, you are on the defensive. And when you take the stand, naturally you're on the defensive. Yeah. And that must be so hard to overcome.
And you know what? We got to wrap this right now, but thank you so much for your courage, for your story. We're going to do a full hour on this and have our guest back here. I'd like to ask you guys to stay while we take Mason Tvert's call. We're going to talk some legalization. I'd like you guys to chime in on this.
Absolutely.
Mason, do we got you, buddy?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, thanks for joining us here. This is Josh Stanley, buddy. Haven't talked to you in a while. I appreciate you being on hold and taking the time to talk with us a little bit about your efforts. Folks, this is Mason Tvert of SAFER. He's also running a ballot initiative that I would like you to talk just a little bit about. Talk about this legalization initiative in Colorado set to hit the ballot in November.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, Josh. Essentially what we have is a statewide initiative known now as Amendment 64. It will appear on this November's ballot, and if adopted, it will do basically three things. It will remove the penalties for adult possession for adults 21 and older and home growing of a limited amount of marijuana. It will, number two, establish a regulatory framework in which marijuana can be produced and distributed in a manner similar to alcohol. So we would have licensed retail stores, licensed cultivation facilities, product manufacturing facilities, testing facilities, and so on. Would also require the General Assembly to enact an excise tax of up to 15% on wholesale sales. So that's an excise tax that will not apply to medical marijuana. This is solely for this new non-medical marijuana. And then the third thing that this initiative will do, which is a really huge bonus, is it will allow for the legal cultivation, processing, and distribution of industrial hemp. So it's a pretty exciting initiative. It's really the largest step that would ever be taken in history up to this point, and we're really getting a lot of momentum and a lot of support behind it.
Well, that's incredible, and I've always commended you for everything you do. And you and I have gone round and round about legalization and medical marijuana. You know where I stand on everything. I legalize it, absolutely. I think what a lot of people misconstrue is the fact that, well, we don't have a system to regulate. If we just legalized it, it would run rampant and you'd have marijuana everywhere, no way to tax it. But that's not at all what you're doing. And we do have a regulatory model set in place in Colorado that would just need a little bit of a screw tightening, I guess, if you will, on the dispensing of this. So it wouldn't be, crazy days and a bunch of fear mongering, people running around getting high. Isn't that right?
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, and it's one of the reasons why I think Colorado has the best chance to pass an initiative like this this November. Although I certainly do hope that initiatives in Washington and possibly Oregon pass. But we don't have to ask voters to imagine nearly as much. They've seen that marijuana can be regulated. They've seen that there can be, licensed medical marijuana centers, which would extend to just marijuana centers in general if this passes. But they've seen that they can be in neighborhoods, and it's not a big deal. They can, they're not causing problems. In fact, they're providing a lot of benefits for the community. And they've also seen that localities are able to, if they do not wish to have these establishments, they're able to not have them. And that's important. And obviously, we many of us would say it's unfair, but at the same time, this is a home rule state. Localities do have that authority virtually no matter what we do. And we basically, we will still have the right in those localities for adults to possess and to grow their own marijuana. But if they, just like with the liquor store, decide they don't want to have it in their town, then they're not required to, but it will take a vote of the people or their representative bodies. So, yeah, things are really far ahead here, and it's very exciting.
Yeah,
well, go ahead, Rob.
Sorry. Hey, Mason, Rob Corry here. Good to have you. I'm just kind of squatting in on this discussion. I've endorsed Amendment 64. My latest column in Cush magazine is a full-throated endorsement of it. Here's the question, though. Is there an opposition? I mean, is there anybody who's against this idea? And if so, who are they? And are they willing to debate you openly, or are they just going to throw pot shots from the outside? No pun intended.
it's been in the news a lot more in the last couple weeks that we've seen formal opposition emerge. It's a group in particular called Smart Colorado, ironically, I suppose. And, it's as could be expected.
They should be prosecuted for a violation of truth in advertising there.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. It's law enforcement officials being funded primarily by anti-drug zealots, and I don't think there's anything wrong with being concerned about the impact of drugs on communities and young people, but these are people who have gone way overboard in their thinking on this. They're not in tune with the American people, let alone people in Colorado on this issue. This is people in Florida who have a long history of very shady activity when it comes to fighting against issues like this.
Isn't that group headed up by a district attorney who would have considerably less power if Amendment 64 passed, and therefore can we trust anything this guy says, or doesn't he have sort of a dog in the fight already?
This is like being at the Supreme Court and having the justice lead you on all your questions. This is great.
Sorry, I'll give you a hardball. Next question's going to be a hardball. Next question, hardball. Get ready.
It's Wells County District Attorney Ken Buck, who many might remember ran unsuccessfully for U.S. Senate here in 2010. Along the way, he had a number of gaffes that really resulted in becoming somewhat of a laughing stock to some extent. But he is now one of the leaders of this effort, and we have welcomed him because he has a pretty bad track record with many Colorado voters, particularly women voters. This is a guy who really alienated women during his Senate run, and we really need to make sure that women are comfortable with this initiative and with this issue, and we're really glad to see that someone like Ken Buck is going to be the one trying to persuade them. But, right now, we have all the momentum in the world. We have endorsements coming in. We've received the official support of the Democratic Party. We have the Libertarian Party support, obviously, and we're working on the Green Party, which is probably, short behind. The Denver Green Party just endorsed. But we have the ACLU, the Colorado Criminal Defense Bar, and more individuals and organizations almost every week. So we're really moving full steam ahead, and I don't think these guys have the opportunity to catch up.
All right, here's your hardball question. After this thing passes and marijuana is legalized, is it going to be as fun to use marijuana as it is now?
Well, I guess the question is it as fun, do you think it's fun to use alcohol now when you feel like having a drink to relax, or to enjoy a concert, or to have a dinner party, or to go to the bar with your friends? I still find that enjoyable despite it being legal. And I really find it enjoyable that I'm not constantly concerned that I'm going to be arrested for it. So, I'm not too worried. I think, for those people who do enjoy marijuana, they enjoy it for a reason beyond its illegal status.
Indeed. Not going to prison is fun, I would say.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I'm going to jump in real quick, Mason. This is Stickman. You've been on our show, too, and we address the government rather directly at times. I think you're aware that Ken Buck, there was an article last week, I believe, that where he sought federal intervention from Eric Holder against your amendment, which is pretty impressive, man. Kudos on that, on a side note.
I would pay for Holder's airplane ticket out here to Colorado to wag his finger at us. I would. I hope it comes out.
I have to read you guys this quote real quick. We read it on our show as well. This was like 2 days after the article, and he had already gotten so much attention over this that he put out a blanket statement. This is what we got in response. It says, the letter sent to the Attorney General is not seeking federal intervention. Rather, it seeks an opinion from the Department of Justice. Amendment 64 is inconsistent with the federal government's position on the possession of marijuana for recreational use. Now, I have to stop halfway through and say he just contradicted himself in that first sentence.
He is seeking an opinion. He's seeking intervention through the opinion. It's blatant hypocrisy.
It gets better. Josh is going to love this part. Everyone. In that light, the letter is absolutely appropriate. It's unfortunate that the proponents of Amendment 64 are using political tactics to detract from the real debate about how this harmful addictive drug will impact our children if legalized.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. I love that statement. Ken Buck, you know what? Come on our show and meet Page Figi, who's coming up next on Science Corner, and let's talk about that. This dangerous, addictive drug has meant to her 5-year-old daughter with no psychoactive effect that's got 90% of her seizures down. I've just about had it with this kind of bureaucracy and this baloney. We're not seeking intervention. We're seeking an opinion. Of course you're seeking intervention. Ken Buck, he's one of the reasons I won't even drive through Weld County. All right, guys, I tell you what.
It's also worth pointing out, and we called out Ken Buck on this, that when he ran for Senate back in 2010, he very publicly stated that he quote, said that if Colorado wants to legalize marijuana, it's none of the federal government's business. And he's obviously changed his tune now that he's working on behalf of this effort instead of on behalf of his campaign.
And Mason, he was right the first time. I mean, this guy is a disgusting excuse for a limited government Republican. He should renounce his party affiliation and just go ahead and, become a Democrat, because he runs to the Obama administration, hides behind the skirts of the Federal Department of Justice, and tries to get them to come in here and dictate to we Coloradans what is right and what is wrong. I mean, this guy should just resign from his membership in the Republican Party, because he's already renounced it. It's disgusting. It's pathetic.
Aren't Republicans small government people?
That's what he said. That's what Buck said over and over and over again, and he's completely changed his tune because he's going to lose business as DA. I mean, he has a direct pecuniary interest in defeating Amendment 64 because it's going to disempower him. He should resign his position as spokesman against this initiative.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. And great points. One more question for you. We got to wrap this up, Mason. But I was speaking with some people at the Department of Revenue about this this proposed amendment, and it's interesting that they have to do a cost-benefit analysis on any one of these proposals that come before a popular vote. Have you talked any with the Department of Revenue on an economic impact study for Colorado, or how this affects Colorado fiscally?
Well, the department, there will be a fiscal impact statement, but it's actually done by the Legislative Council and the Legislative Services folks at the General Assembly. They're tasked with putting together the Blue Book, which folks might be familiar with. You get it in the mail before every election. It explains every initiative and has arguments for and against. And as one of your fine panelists there, Mr. Rob Corry, knows all too well, we've had some Blue Book issues in the past. He represented us in trying to fight against some very, very misleading Blue Book information, and we're really doing everything we can to prevent anything like that from happening. So it's a big, long process. The legislative services folks have to develop that, and we have the opportunity to kind of look at it and chime in. So we've provided them with a whole lot of information, and we also have a lot to work with in terms of having these types of fiscal impact statements prepared in California, for example, in 2010. And then, of course, there's the work of folks like Jeffrey Myron, the Harvard economist, who is constantly doing analysis on this type of thing. So we've arrived at, we've done some in-house analysis, and really basically based on what we've seen with those types of reports, what we've put together is that this is basically going to result in about $50 million per year in revenue, new revenue and savings. That's at least up until 2017. So we hope that they'll come up with a fair analysis as well. And in the end, I think people around the state recognize that marijuana prohibition is an utter failure. It's ineffective and it's wasteful. And regardless of what that price tag might be put on it, they understand that it's just not worth it, and it's time for a change.
Yeah. Right. You said it. It is time for a change, and I'm sorry that's time for us to go to break here. But, Mason, I'd like to have you in the studio. Would you come and join us in July? Let us know how this is progressing.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much
Anytime.
for coming on tonight, brother. It's great to talk to you. I want to thank my my panel for the first half hour. Thank you guys, Elisa, Rob, Stickman. You guys were great. Please come back and see us. We're going to take a short break.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Let's face it, rules and regulations are complicated, especially in the field of medical marijuana. Let Medical Marijuana 101 help you get through the compliance process. We can also explain to you your employment requirements, your employees, and your business. But our work doesn't stop there. Our experience in cultivation ranges from the design of grow rooms to the diagnosis and resolution of grow problems. Visit us at www.medicalmarijuana101.com or call 303-388-7706. That's 303-388-7706. Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it. On grass. Runongrass.com.
Hi, I'm Josh Stanley.
And I'm Jesse Stanley.
Two of the brothers here from National Geographic's American Weed, and we'd like to invite you to come into our dispensaries in Colorado Springs. Come in for the most pure organic strain selection in Colorado. It's all hand-grown by the Stanley brothers, especially for our patients. So come in and visit us at our two locations, East Platte and West Colorado. And remember,
always be kind to each other.
Are you a medical marijuana patient or interested in finding out how to become one? Contact Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. Conveniently located on Hamden and Tamarack in the Whole Foods parking lot behind Proof of the Pudding. Mile High Wellness offers a wide variety of edibles, hashes, and some of Colorado's top strains. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. 3525 South Tamarack, Suite 110, on the corner of Hamden and Tamarack. 720-382-8516. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern.
Hi, Josh Stanley here from National Geographic's American Weed. I'm here with my brothers, and we've just recently put together a foundation in Colorado to allow for cancer patients and other patients of debilitating conditions to be able to get a hold of cannabis-based oil that's just about free of charge. I've just about had it with seeing sick patients suffer needlessly just because they can't afford the proper medication. That's what the Realm of Caring is going to change. Visit therealmofcaring.com. The website will be complete and up on 4/20 of 2012. But until then, please contact any of us Stanley brothers directly through email. You can get us at gratefuljosh@hotmail.com. Now come on, Colorado. We need to take care of each other. Join the Realm. That's realmofcaring.com. Thank you so much.
California's Attorney General has determined that the Repeal Cannabis Prohibition Act will save hundreds of millions of dollars from our overburdened justice system while creating hundreds of millions in new tax revenues from new sustainable jobs and industries that are friendly to our environment. But we can't do it without your help. We are seeking your donations to get on the ballot. Please go to repealcannabisprohibition.org to learn more about how you can help. It's time to end the war on cannabis and hemp in California. It's time to end the madness. Paid for by Sensible Californians Incorporated.
Hey, okay. Welcome back to American Weed Realm Radio. We're moving into the last part of our hour here, and that's the part we call Science Corner. This is where we take your questions from the week. I get Facebook requests, I get email requests, and then people blog in live. Unfortunately, Jesse, my co-host, is not here with me to take those live blogs. I'm sorry about that. You can also try calling in with questions. We have a few questions that we're going to tackle tonight, and typically for this part of the show, I step back and I let my fellow nerds retire to their nerdery and answer your questions, because anything I answer is just going to be baloney anyway. So so we're going to get into this, and I want to preface this. We also have a very, very special guest, and this is Page Figi, and Paige. You know, Paige was here for our very first broadcast because we feel like her story is so important, and her daughter Charlotte and what they go through with Dravet syndrome. Charlotte's one of the reasons we do what we do. Charlotte's one of the reasons that the Realm is what it is. And we're honored and blessed to be part of Paige and the Figgies' lives. And we're happy she could stop in the studio tonight. So if you have any questions for her as well, she's going to chime in. We're going to be talking a lot about CBD. We got Jennifer Murray, owner of CannLabs here.
Hello.
We got Chris Stubbs.
Buenos noches.
Buenos. We got Kate Evans here, and Kate's here to answer any questions. We're working on some special projects with Kate that I think are going to come to fruition here in the coming months. We're all coming together here, and that's the important thing as a community. So we can begin to speak one voice and talk about medicinal cannabis as being just that, medicinal. And for too long, people try to poo-poo it and say, this is backdoor to legalization. Look at it as you may, and then meet little Charlotte and meet the myriad of cancer patients that we deal with on a day-to-day basis at the Realm of Caring. So with that, I'm going to turn this over. Chris, do you have any of the questions written down, or you want me to fire off a couple to you?
That'd be great if you could fire a few off. I actually
Great.
Insanely busy all day, like usual.
I
but I do have a
understand.
couple from Page, and I know you do as well. So if you guide me along, that always helps.
You know,
I get wild
Paige,
anyhow.
since you're here, I'm not going to, I want you to fire the questions, and you guys kind of take over.
There we go. I know we had one about juicing, right?
Yep, there's one mom who's been juicing for a year, raw juicing, so it's not decarboxylated, it's not activated, with success, and then she switched to a tincture, glyceride,
Glycerin
and
infusion.
then it kind of had some trouble there, and
Okay.
she just wants to know more about how the effects of raw juicing, and when it's not activated, the THC or the CBD. What do you know about that? The science behind that?
I know that there's, generally speaking, there are a lot of benefits to juicing because it's a non-psychoactive, but and it's easy, especially in the diet. The interesting thing about it is, again, the entire cannabis plant helps nudge your body through the endocannabinoid system into a more anti-inflammatory state, and whether it's psychoactive or not doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? It seems to be more effective when you're directly hitting the cannabinoid receptors, but taking that in as a dietary supplement, you can use the example of hemp supplements as well. There's been a lot of anecdotal evidence out there, even in animals, horses, old dogs, supplementing their diets with hemp.
You could talk about those,
Oh, yeah.
THCA benefits.
But those, that has helped in the case of arthritis, in the animal models as well. So I think the answer there is, there's a really complicated biochemistry to the plant and to us. There's a lot of reasons why, for example, a low dose product like that, like a juice, would work well for some people and not for others based on the possible mutations in their cannabinoid receptors. They might not be responding to those low levels as efficiently as other people with no mutations in certain areas. So I think does that help?
Yeah, and in the epilepsy community, there's a lot of interest in the inflammatory response. So that does address that. I think a lot of seizures are caused by just the inflammation.
Yeah, and if you look on our disease and health benefits on the back of our postcard, or I can email you one, we have a column for THCA, so it is an anti-inflammatory. It's also relieves spasms and inhibits tumor cell growth. So those are some of the things that THCA, which is non-decarboxylated.
First up, this is amazing information here for that CannLabs brings about. Can you get this information online?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not directly on our website right now. We should
you should get
down,
that.
but yeah,
ASAP.
and I can always email it to you, so you can email me at GENIFER, Jennifer, at CannLabs.com, CANNLABS.com. I'd be happy to email it to you.
There you go.
Hey, Paige, do you have any other questions you were wanting to look at?
Let me go online, carry on, and I'll grab a couple.
I have a question here.
Go for it.
This comes from Rebecca Brown, and Rebecca, I always have to say thank you so much for putting together this CBD group.
Absolutely.
Most definitely.
Thank
you, Rebecca. Can't wait to meet you.
It went from 6 people to
Almost, it's over 200, isn't
over
it?
200 people
In like 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks.
That was ridiculous.
And so, Rebecca, thank you, and thanks for your question here. So we're going to address this. She's curious what method you would recommend for making cannabis oil for personal use. I've read a lot about the butane as well as rice cooker. I'm a little concerned about using butane or other solvents, as that just doesn't seem healthy. Any tips would be greatly appreciated. And also, are there other methods of dosing for children that you would recommend, like tinctures, etc.? Plus, once it's made, how do we figure out the dose? Is that something that our lab should help us with?
My goodness, let me see that sucker there.
That's awesome.
That is good.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
for the
much,
question, Rebecca. Yeah, for sure. This is something I had been needing to respond to. So, for personal use, butane is dangerous in the home, especially if you've got kids. I mean, ventilation with any of these solvents in the evaporation stage is the biggest problem. That's why California took action against it. Even other states with, there's equipment you can buy out there that's not that expensive to do extractions of lots of things, making your own colognes or essences, etc. And you can use those directly in this. for this use.
What
But
would
again,
you recommend outside of using butane?
I think, I mean, one of this, I hate to recommend and like, you know what I'm saying?
Suggest.
But yeah, to be doing basement chemistry, alchemy. But I understand the position you're in, and access is a huge thing. One of the safest is Everclear. I mean, grain alcohol, that's food quality, it's non-toxic. You know, it's required to have the concentration and the purity level that it does, and that's the easiest way to go.
And it evaporates.
And it does evaporate. I mean, you can leave it out in the sun, let
Rice
it evaporate. I mean, and it evaporates pretty fast if you have a large surface area to volume ratio, and you set it out in the sun and let it naturally evaporate. That's going to help with activation as well, because the UV light as well as heat causes that bond rearrangement from THC acid to delta 9, or from CBD acid to CBG acid, you know, etc. All the acidic cannabinoids that the plant makes go to neutral. Now, that's not going to be a complete process, but it'll at least somewhat get you there. But once you get that solvent out, you can put it in the oven and further activate it if that's the goal. Whoops.
And then what?
Okay.
And then
well, you know, once you have the product, she asks about tinctures. Is that the best way to take it? And you know, quite frankly, some children have a hard time swallowing. Okay, for example, there's a lot of different ways, and maybe you can talk about that as far as hard candies or suckers.
Yes, that's a really good point, and I do want to make a clarification statement too. Typically, with medical plants, an infusion is into an oil or into glycerin or something not containing alcohol, whereas a tincture contains alcohol. So most of the times with the honey or the oils, those are all classified as infusions, and that's a great way to go. I mean, I hear a lot of good feedback from putting it into a cooking oil or an olive oil. I mean, all those oils help in your diet in the first place.
And agave is good.
Agave and honey work great, because those carbohydrates allow things to be taken into the cell rapidly, into your cells, because it's glucose, you know, once it's metabolized. And that kind of hits on a couple things. Getting cannabinoids into the cell, you know, there are receptor-independent pathways that cause activation of the endocannabinoid system, and there's receptor-dependent pathways. So you're getting it in and outside of the cell, and that can be, theoretically, really effective.
And then dosing on that.
And testing.
Testing and dosing on those. So here in Colorado, in CannLabs, and this is important for everyone to understand, we test a full edible, we test a full infusion, whatever the dose is, that's what we extract to make sure that that science translates back to the patient. And so with all of those, you know, we're able to provide those numbers. If you're outside of the state dealing with another lab, that might be difficult or damn near impossible to get good data on. But as far as recommended dosing, I can't answer that.
Yep.
I'm not sure that anybody can really answer that.
There are published guidelines.
Trial and error.
And there are animal models that don't translate very well. The best thing is to talk to a physician that has worked with this type of thing specifically. There are tons of them in this state and tons in the other medical states. But you have to look at the data they've relied upon as well, because the dosing could be off by 10 or 20 fold.
Well, and that's part of what we do, you know, with the realm of caring, is we're doing these tracking studies, observational research studies, and I'll just, you know, I had to come back to Charlotte, but we use Charlotte as an example here because, and we're not going to give any specific ratios over the air.
Right.
We don't make claims or anything like this. We're just here to help and observe. And so we've been messing with Charlotte's ratios for some time, and some have worked a little, some have worked a lot, but they have to be changed every now and again. So explain that to us just a little bit, Paige.
Do you not want me to go into detail on the number?
Not on the number of ratios, just because I don't want to give the idea that every person is the same.
Right, and it's not in it. You know, just in my little parent group, it's very different. again, I'll just stress the testing. I've seen the plant tested, I've seen the extraction tested, and then I've seen the tincture tested. So I know exactly how many grams, in 1 ml. It's not water, it's heavier, it's honey. And how many milligrams exactly. And so when I change things, I don't go any shorter than 2 weeks at a time. So I'll start a ratio and I track everything, mood, behavior, and I'll give it 2 weeks before I change and go up or go down in the ratio. And I am tracking how many milligrams per day and per dose she's getting, and I do think it's important.
Do you know what the milligrams per kilogram, which is the standard units, translates to, or milligrams per pound per day?
Per day. So so Charlotte is taking. You want me to?
If you want to.
So this is what was working right now for Charlotte, and again, we had to work up to this. I would have never been able to start at this non-psychoactively. She would have been high if I started at this dose, but we've worked up to it. Her THC tolerance has climbed, and so now she's at 100 milligrams CBD per day. She weighs 35 pounds, so she's about 2 milligrams per pound of body weight per day, and I give it to her in 3 different doses.
Okay.
And we had to work up to that. So it's still that, and she's at a 10-to-1 ratio, so that's 100 milligrams CBD and 10 milligrams of THC. And I think probably she would have slightly felt that. And again, I think we're so harsh on the THC. I'm starting to see the benefits. Like
it definitely helps.
That's what I talked about last week.
Right.
They work together, and there's something to be said for feels good, are good, mind, body.
Yeah.
But since it's so new, and we're talking about children here, and people don't want to hear.
Agreed.
And we're promoting that we're non-psychoactive and we're not getting these children high.
But you know what? The reality is that
they're in a different state of mind.
They
have something different going on.
Yeah. They might feel high all the time because they're in there in their own little world. I mean, that's got to be an insane experience.
Yeah. And the condition that they have. You never know that.
You don't know.
And the ratio she's working with right now, are we correct in assuming about 80 to 90% less of the seizure activity?
This last month has been higher than 90% seizure reduction. So let's say 90, like I said, the first week to be conservative, 90%. And Charlotte had a lot of room for improvement, but I mean, there's no pharmaceuticals involved to taint this number.
So that is
amazing. It's been very consistent since February.
How much does she weigh again?
She's about 35 pounds.
Okay. Can I add something just
we have about 3 minutes.
The one thing I was just going to say about psychedelics and highness and all of that, I mean, there is tolerance, and that builds very quickly. And there's also endocannabinoids in mother's milk, and that's been shown in all mammals and humans. And so, who's to say that we're not psychedelically tweaked a little bit and tricked into getting the munchies and being satiated all at the same time to train our behavior. That's the theory out there. But when you think about what's safe and what's not, just realize that this endocannabinoid system's being activated from birth.
Right. Not to mention, again, take a look at the disease and health benefits. Look at the THC column. I mean, it has a ton of benefits.
Antidepressant,
I just feel like
anti-insomnia.
I'm touting the non-psychoactive thing, so I didn't jump on the 100 milligrams a day. We started very low and climbed up, and that's how I felt safe since she's kind of a new 5-year-old. She's 5 years old.
And we're glad you didn't jump on that that high train. Okay, we got one more question here. We got to wrap things up. Let's answer it as quick as we can. So, guys, this comes from Sean Moore. How many people have to change strains on a daily basis, like his son Chaz, who has to do that?
So the question is, how
many strains do you have to change on a daily basis? Why is it important to change strains? Why do you get a different effect?
It's a very subjective question because, again, the plant's very complicated, and so are we. And I don't, it's not even understood what the entourage effect actually is of cannabinoids, terpenoids, flavonoids, how those
which build
differ.
The strain.
Yeah, which build the strain and its entire profile, scent, smell, taste, and physiological activity. And so a lot of people, and we talked about this a little last week too, challenging the system when it's not working anymore. And it's because of tolerance, it's because of receptor modulation. As you activate, they draw back in and down-regulate. Right. So if you tease them differently, they can regrow, and you have that activity again.
Just like a muscle in a workout room.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a great example.
Exactly.
Right. All right, guys, I got to cut us loose here. I want to thank my guests here. Thank you for stopping in.
Thanks.
Paige,
You're
Kate,
welcome.
Chris, Jennifer. You're going to
Thank
get
you.
these guys, at least Jennifer and Chris, every week. I'm working on Ask Dr. Shaq, and he can come in here and have another part of this. And we may even go to 2 hours on this show.
Yeah.
We can't get it all in. So we'll discuss doing that. So I want to have that for you so he can answer targeted health questions. Folks, I want to thank everybody for your support. Please visit realmofcaring.com. Get involved. We need your help. Every patient needs your help. We can't do this on our own. Everybody jump in. We are all the realm. We'll see you next week.
Stay tuned for Sexpot Radio. It's next on
Sexpot
iCannabis
Radio is next on iCannabis Radio. Good night, everybody.
Cheers.
Night.